You ever been in a situation where you both feel something so deep, so powerful that it scares you? Where every look, every touch, every word feels like home, but that very feeling of home also feels like a risk. Love, my friend, is not always lost because of hate. It's often lost because of fear. Fear of losing control, fear of rejection, fear of being seen for who you truly are. Sometimes two people are standing inches apart, hearts wide open, souls trembling, and yet both hold back. Too scared to fall, too scared to say what's already written in their eyes. There's a strange kind of love where you want to reach out, but your pride whispers. Wait, where you want to confess, but your wounds whisper. Don't. You feel them in every heartbeat, yet you pretend you don't. You scroll past their name, even though your soul stops at it every time. You want to text, but your ego says no. You want to call, but your fear says not again. That's not lack of love. That's fear disguised as control. And it's one of the biggest tragedies of human connection. When love is there, pure and real, but never spoken because both hearts are too afraid to risk breaking. Fear, when it comes to love, doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers. It says, what if they don't feel the same? What if I open up and get hurt again? What if I'm too much? And so you both pull away, pretending it doesn't matter. But deep down, you know it does. Because every time they're near, your heartbeat betrays your silence. Every time you see them smile, your walls shake a little. Every time you walk away, your soul looks back, hoping they'll stop you. Sometimes you both act like strangers, even though your souls already know each other. You laugh at each other's jokes a little too long. You remember small details you shouldn't. You find reasons to cross paths, but never reasons to stay. It's not that you don't want to love. It's that you're terrified of what happens if you do. Because love requires surrender. And surrender feels dangerous when you've spent your life protecting yourself. The first sign that you both are afraid to love each other is silence. Not the peaceful kind, but the heavy one that hides words unsaid. When you find yourself rehearsing conversations in your head that never leave your lips, that's fear speaking. The second sign is distance, that invisible wall you both build with logic and excuses, telling yourselves you're too busy, when in truth, you're too scared to try. The third sign is overthinking, analyzing every message, every pause, every emoji instead of just feeling the truth. Because when love feels uncertain, your mind becomes louder than your heart. The fourth sign is pretending you don't care. You start to act like they don't matter just to protect your heart. But deep down, you're lying to yourself. You avoid eye contact, not because you don't feel something, but because you feel too much. The fifth sign is self-sabotage. When you push them away before they ever get the chance to leave, just to prove you were right about love not lasting. The sixth sign is comparison, looking for their reflection in everyone else, but never finding it. Because no matter how hard you try, no one carries their energy, no one mirrors their soul. The seventh sign is emotional withdrawal. You start to hide behind jokes, avoid vulnerability, and use distractions to silence the ache. You convince yourself you're fine alone, yet every song, every quote, every dream keeps leading back to them. The eighth sign is timing. You both keep saying, maybe one day, but that day never comes because fear keeps winning the present. And the ninth sign, the most painful one, is when you both feel the connection, but neither of you moves. You wait for the other to make a move, and in that waiting, the love that could have been fades quietly into the background of your lives. What people don't understand is that love doesn't die from lack of feeling. It dies from lack of courage. You can't experience the magic of love if you're still trying to control the outcome. You can't truly connect if you're still scared of being seen. You can't receive love if you're too busy guarding your heart. Sometimes the only way to keep love alive is to let your fear die. You see, fear of love is often rooted in pain from the past. You remember the betrayal, the abandonment, the heartbreak, and your mind decides that protecting yourself is safer than loving again. But you have to realize not everyone will break you. Not every story will end the same. Not every I love you will fade. You're not weak for wanting to love again. You're brave for still believing after being hurt. When two souls mirror each other's fear, love becomes a dance of almosts. Almost called, almost said, almost stayed. You go to bed thinking about them, wondering if they're thinking about you too. You tell yourself you've moved on, but every time you hear their name, your heart reminds you that you haven't. You see, it's not that you don't love, it's that you don't know how to love without losing control. Real love requires risk. It requires you to show your scars, your softness, your truth. It's not about being perfect, it's about being present. It's about saying, I'm scared, but I'm still here. It's about choosing vulnerability over ego, honesty over pride, courage over comfort. Because love will always test your strength, not through storms, but through surrender. Maybe you both are waiting for the other to speak first, to text first, to break the silence. But what if that silence is where love dies? What if, instead of waiting, you took the first step? What if the risk you're afraid of is actually your miracle waiting to unfold? Love isn't supposed to be safe. It's supposed to be real. And sometimes being real means saying, I'm afraid, but I don't want to lose you because of that. But don't let fear make you miss what your soul has already recognized. If you both feel the connection, acknowledge it. Don't hide behind logic or pride, because when two people are meant for each other, distance doesn't destroy them, silence does. And the saddest part is, most people don't lose their soulmate because they stop loving, they lose them because they never showed it when it mattered. Love isn't just about chemistry or timing. It's about courage. Courage to be seen. Courage to say, I care. Courage to love without knowing how it ends. Because even if it doesn't last forever, at least you'll know you were brave enough to try. And that, right there, is what makes you free. You see, the universe rewards truth. When you open your heart, even if it shakes, you invite healing. When you speak your truth, even if your voice trembles, you break generational patterns. When you let love in, even when it scares you, you grow beyond what you thought was possible. So if you're listening to this right now, and you know there's someone who mirrors your fear, someone you love but haven't told, someone you miss but won't admit, understand this. Your silence won't protect you. It will only prolong your pain. Say what your heart has been holding. Feel what you've been suppressing. Because love, unexpressed, turns into regret. And regret is the heaviest thing you'll ever carry. At the end of the day, two people who are afraid to love each other will spend their lives wondering, what if? But those who choose love, even with trembling hearts, will always know peace. Because love, no matter how it ends, always leaves you better than it found you. It breaks you open, It humbles you. It transforms you. It teaches you that being vulnerable is not weakness. It's power. So take the risk. Say how you feel. Let them know. Because if it's real, it will find its way back. And if it doesn't, at least you'll walk away knowing you didn't let fear write your story. Because sometimes love doesn't need forever to be unforgettable. It just needs courage. And if you can find that courage, even once, you'll never fear love again. Love doesn't always fail from hate. Sometimes it dies in silence because both hearts are too afraid to speak, because two souls can look at each other and feel everything, yet still hold back, scared that if they open up, the other might walk away, scared that if they confess how much they care, it might break the balance they've built out of fear. So they smile when they want to cry. They distance when they want to hold close. They pretend they don't care when their heart is screaming the opposite. And this is how love fades, not from betrayal, not from indifference, but from hesitation, from pride, from fear of being seen too deeply. When two people love each other, but neither wants to risk being the first to fall, the connection becomes a battlefield of silence, a quiet war where both lose, because love cannot breathe where fear lies. And fear is what keeps the lips shut. When the heart is begging to speak, it's what turns late night messages into drafts never sent. It's what turns longing into loneliness and passion into pain. Sometimes we don't realize that the greatest heartbreak isn't losing someone. It's losing the chance to be honest when love was still alive. It's watching something beautiful die, slowly in the quiet moments we could have filled with truth. It's realizing that the person who made you feel everything never really knew how much you felt, because you never told them. You waited for a sign. They waited for a signal, and both waited too long until the waiting became the ending. Love doesn't need grand gestures. It needs vulnerability. It needs courage. It needs someone to say, I care even when the voice shakes. I miss you even when the pride burns. I'm sorry even when the ego fights. But fear makes people silent, and silence becomes the distance that no words can fix later. When you are afraid to love, you protect your heart, but you imprison it too. You save yourself from pain, but you also block yourself from joy. You build walls so high that not even love can climb them. And one day you find yourself wondering why you feel so lonely. Even when love once stood right in front of you, you realize that connection doesn't die in explosions. It dies in the slow erosion of unspoken feelings, in the nights when you wanted to reach out but didn't, in the days when you wanted to forgive but couldn't, in the moments when your soul whispered speak and you answered with silence because fear dressed itself as logic, pride disguised itself as self-respect, and both whispered, don't be the one who cares more. And that's how love slips away quietly, without goodbye, without closure, without understanding. When two hearts mirror each other's fear, love becomes a reflection of everything unsaid. You see them pull back, so you pull back. You feel them hesitate, so you hesitate. And both of you end up protecting your pain instead of protecting your bond. The truth is, love takes bravery. It takes emotional nakedness. It takes showing your scars without shame and saying, I'm scared, but I still choose you. And that's what many never do. They wait for a perfect moment that never comes. They want assurance before they risk. They want safety before they surrender. And in the process, they lose the very thing that could have healed them. Love doesn't always need fixing. It needs feeling. It needs both people to step out of the fear of being hurt and step into the possibility of being understood. But when both are guarded, the connection feels like standing in front of a locked door with two keys, yet neither wants to be the first to open it. And so they both walk away wondering what could have been, wondering if the other cared as much. And years later, they'll think about each other and smile with a little ache in their chest, because deep down they know they didn't lose love. They lost courage. They lost the moment. They lost the chance to say what their hearts already knew. Sometimes it's not the wrong timing that breaks a bond. It's the right people too afraid to love loudly because they've been hurt before, because they've learned to protect instead of express, and that protection becomes their prison. Love demands presence, not perfection. It demands truth, not games. It asks you to show up even when you're scared, to communicate even when your voice trembles, to stay when your instinct says run, because love isn't supposed to be easy. It's supposed to be real, and real means vulnerable. It means you might get hurt, but it also means you might heal. When both people are afraid to love, the relationship becomes a dance of almost calling, almost confessing, almost trying again, almost choosing, but not quite. And the tragedy is that both feel the same, both ache the same, both think the same, yet both wait for the other to make the move. And that waiting builds walls higher than heartbreak. Sometimes silence becomes louder than truth. It becomes the loudest goodbye ever spoken without words. You start to convince yourself it's better this way, better not to speak, better not to risk. But love dies in that kind of logic, because love without expression is just emotion trapped in a cage, and eventually that cage becomes your comfort zone, and your comfort zone becomes your regret. Fear tells you that silence keeps you safe, but what it really does is keep you stuck in the memory of what could have been, stuck in the pain of never knowing, stuck in the ache of wondering if they felt the same, and deep down you know they did, but they were just as scared as you were. Love between two fearful hearts becomes a mirror, both reflecting the same pain, both craving connection but hiding behind protection, and every time one wants to reach, the other steps back. Every time one softens, the other hardens, until both forget how to meet halfway, and that's when love fades, not because it was weak, but because it wasn't watered, it wasn't spoken, it wasn't lived out loud. The truth is, if you're afraid to love, you'll always end up loving in silence and regretting in pain, because fear makes you think you're protecting your heart, but all you're doing is starving it. The most painful love stories are not the ones that ended, but the ones that never began, because both were too afraid to start. Love doesn't ask you to be fearless. It asks you to be brave in spite of the fear, to risk rejection for the chance of connection, to let go of control long enough to be surprised by how right it could feel. When both are afraid to love, they turn potential into paralysis, chemistry into confusion, and destiny into distance. And yet beneath all that silence, there's still a pull, still a bond, still a heartbeat that remembers, still a thought that whispers maybe. And that maybe becomes the ghost that lingers long after the chances are gone. Love deserves expression. It deserves words. It deserves effort, because the heart was never built to hold back. It was built to reach, to trust, to open. And even though fear tells you it's safer not to try, the truth is you can't protect your heart from breaking without also protecting it from blooming. And that's the cost of fear. It keeps you safe, but it keeps you small. It keeps you unhurt, but it keeps you unloved. So if you feel something, say it. If you miss someone, reach out. If you love someone, let them know. Because you don't want to wake up one day and realize that you lost the love of your life, not because they didn't love you back, but because you were both too afraid to let love win over fear. Silence feels powerful in the moment, but in hindsight, it's heavy. It's filled with all the words that could have changed everything. So stop letting fear make your choices. Stop letting pride protect your pain. Stop waiting for the perfect moment, because there is no perfect moment. There's only right now, and right now could be the difference between a memory that hurts and a life that heals. When you love in fear, you never fully experience love's beauty, because love requires trust, and trust requires risk, and risk requires vulnerability. So open your heart, even if it trembles. Speak your truth, even if it shakes, because at least then you'll know you tried, and you'll never have to wonder what could have been if only you were brave enough to love out loud. Fear will always whisper, what if it doesn't work? But love will whisper, what if it does? And that whisper deserves to be heard, because the greatest tragedy isn't a broken heart. It's a heart that never had the courage to love fully when it had the chance.